Your Harbor 20 with the mast on the deck. So once you get the shrink wrap off, it'll look something kind of like this. And you're going to want to untie the mast completely from the boat and prepare to move it back to the mast step. The thing you'll notice is we've got the Windex taped to the base mast. Be sure to pull that free and just mount it inside the socket at the very top of the mast. With the mast pulled back into position, you'll notice that there's two bolts on the mast step, and that'll line up with two holes on the base of the mast. Get the mast put down in position, have the bolts go from the inside of the hinge out so that the nuts are on the very outside. In the beginning, you can just have them so that they're on and into the threads. Later on, once you're farther down the course, you can tighten down farther on the nuts. You'll notice we have 5 wires coming up from the holes in the deck and 3 ropes coming out of the base of the mast. The 3 in the middle correspond with the 3 ropes coming through the mast, and that's your main halyard, your lazy jack, and your jib sock halyard. Now it's time to undo the halyards from the mast so you can get the end of the rope, and we use masking tape to tie up or attach the rope to the corresponding wire. All the exit locations are marked on the console so you can pull one piece of wire and figure out which control line it's going to be. If you look up the mast, you can see which control line you're dealing with. Generally, the main halyard is the white with black trim going all the way to the top of the mast. The solid white is the jib sock, trim is the lazy jack. It's a good idea to tug the rope from one end of the mast and hold on to the corresponding end that's out of the mast at any given time so that you're pulling the right line. The main halyard wire is in the center of the mast. The jib sock halyard is on the left-hand hole, and the lazy jacks is the right-hand forward hole. Now it's time to tape up the jib sock wire to the jib sock rope. Taping the wire to the rope to get the rope to pull through. Try to keep that as clean as possible so that it flows smoothly through the blocks underneath the console. Don't be afraid to use tape. It's cheap and it's easy insurance against having to crawl underneath the deck to re-lead one of the lines underneath the console. Now it's free to pull through. You just pull the wire from one side of the deck gently and it feeds through nicely. Be especially careful when you get to the very end. And once it pulls free, it's a good idea to disconnect the wire from the rope and put a stop knot in the rope so it doesn't pull back free. Now we've gotten the lazy jack all led, or the jib sock led all through. Now it's time to move on to the main halyard, and we'll do that in the same way we did the jib sock halyard. And then after that, we'll continue on with the lazy jacks. To get all 3 of the center halyards led through, it's a good idea to make sure that the outboard end of those lines are connected to something solid. Usually one of the pad eyes on the mast or the gooseneck is a good place to shackle everything together to. That way you don't lose it at the top of the mast when you raise the mast. It's time to hook up the shrouds to the chain plates, and so we'll just break the tape free of those and leave one lower and one upper to each side of the boat. Once you put the pins through the turnbuckles through the chain plates, it's a very good idea to tape together the 2 turnbuckles prior to raising the mast. This helps ensure that you won't bend one of the turnbuckle posts as the mast is being raised. The other thing you want to do is make sure that the shrouds and shelves play out freely and don't have any kinks in them along the way. The thing to note is that the upper shroud goes to the outside hole in the turnbuckle or chain plate, and the lower shroud goes to the inside hole in the turnbuckle. Now just repeat the process on the other side of the boat, and we're almost ready to raise the mast. forget to uncoil the backstay, and you can attach it to the backstay pennant coming out of the transom of the boat. The ring being through, and the backstay is all hooked up on its pennant. Just about ready to raise the mast. We can break free all the tape holding the headstay and rope to the mast, and it's also a good idea to take one final look, see to make sure that all the lines are going on the proper side of the mast, and that nothing looks like it's twisted or hung up or will catch as the mast goes up. Here's what the boat looks like with the mast ready to raise in position. Here we are on a beautiful spring day in California with the rain falling. One last check of the shrouds and the backstay and running rigging, and we're ready to jump up on the boat and raise the mast. It's a good idea to have a helper for this project to help put the headstay pin through the bow eye. So let's get a helper and we'll be all set. Stop before you raise your mast, make a clear visual inspection, make sure there are no overhead wires to avoid electrical shock by. Here we have a clear view of the sky, and we're ready to raise the mast. You're going to need one person at the base part, or the middle part of the mast for the back of the cockpit. What I do is I try to walk on both sides of the cockpit seats so that I get good, stable, wide footing and a lot of height to raise the mast up. Climb in underneath the shrouds and around everything. Gather up the mast, headstay, lines. Then I like to put it on my shoulder and start walking it forward. When you get it most of the way up, make sure you pull on the lazy jack, main halyard, and jib sock so that it doesn't get stuck underneath the mast hinge as it comes down. Okay, now it's in position. Now you can have your helper come and take the pin out of the headstay and put it on the bow eye. To get the headstay drum pin put through the bow eye, you can start preloading the jib furling rope through the drum. Make sure that when you do put the headstay on, that the opening in the drum is facing aft. Very important. Feed the line through, tie a stop knot in the top of the hole, and you're ready to start winding. Winding it now will allow you to preload the drum so that when you hook the jib up, you can just twirl it right in and it'll be all set to go. The next step in the process, now that we've got the mast up, is to tune the rig. First step is to center the rig with putting a tape measure onto the main halyard, running that to the top of the mast, and measure from side to side by the chain plates. Take a measurement and make sure that's even from side to side. Once that's set, then take a pair of pliers and a screwdriver to turn down the upper turnbuckles. I've found that 20 half turns on the uppers gets you in a good starting range for an initial tightness. Usually a vice grip and a screwdriver is going to get the job done. Don't forget to take the cotter pins out of the middle of the turnbuckle before you start adjusting the rig. Once you get the uppers tightened down the proper amount, sight the mast, make sure that's going straight up, and if it's bowing from one side or the other, take that up on the lowers till you get a straight column. Next step is to evenly bring on the lowers so that you have an even, straight mast going up the mast. You don't want to see any bend or the tip bending off to one side or the other. Use the lowers individually to bring the mast back into column, fore and aft, and thwartships. Once that's done, put the pins back in all lowers and all uppers and tape them for safety, and you're done tuning the mast. The tuning guide that's enclosed gives you some tuning suggestions for tension gauges using a loose tension gauge. To get the mast up and down, we had to leave the rig untuned, otherwise it would be too tight since the spreaders are swept aft. Well, due to some unexpected rain, we moved things back inside the building, and here we have the assembled boom here on the floor to show you the component pieces. Right now Brian's undoing the lazy jack bridles, and what you'll do is once the boom is put on the gooseneck is you'll take one of the lazy jack lines coming out of the middle of the mast and tying a bowline eye through each of the bridles, and that'll gather the sail when you're lowering it. The next thing we have is your main sheet. Just undo that, and the center free main sheet block will go through the traveler. Just undo the little ring-ding shackle and put it on through. And you'll also notice that we have the reefing line pre-rigged on the boom. This will go all the way forward to a big bundle, and what you'll do is attach that to the wire in the deck console and feed it through the deck to its respective cleat. Most folks out in California have figured out that if it's time to reef, it's time to go to the bar. So they've actually just dead-ended it back at the boat. The reefing line is a single line reef and goes from the opening in the deck up to the grommet in the sail, back down through this cheek block, then it goes aft through the fair lead, back to the aft cheek block, up to the grommet in the sail, and then goes back down around to the fair lead eye strap on the bottom of the boom, and then gets dead-ended with a stopper knot. That completes your single line reefing. What most folks have done in California is, because there's so much line that's left unused the majority of the time, they usually run it through the console block, and then where it comes out at the deck, they have it just dead-ended with a stop knot, and then if they decide to reef, they'll lace it through at that time. The final two items on the boom are the boom vang and the outhaul. Outhaul is preload on the boom, and the boom vang just gets shackled to the fitting at the base of the mast, and you're all set. Okay, we're back inside now, and the mast is down, we're out of the rain. But assuming that the mast is up, when the boom's all rigged up and you got the lazy jacks on, it's time to put the mainsail in the mast. And to do that, we've got this little plate on the starboard side of the mast, and you want to take the large screws out, and that will remove the plate and give you an opening to put the sail slugs through. You want to be careful when you're doing this, especially if you're trying to take the mainsail off in the water, because this is a custom fitted piece and doesn't float very well. So that'll leave the spot to put the slugs in. When they're all in, put the plate back on, and you are ready to have your captive mainsail on the mast at all times. I found that with a bridle self-tending jib is that it's quite possible to over-trim the jib very easily. What I found in sailing as boats around for the last 3 years is that for a general upwind condition, if you keep the leeward side jib sheet so it's coming perpendicular out of the deck, that seems to be a good upwind position. You can bring it in tighter, but what it does is it just closes off the slot between the jib and the main and slows the boat down. In some instances you can bring it in tighter to pinch up a little tighter, but if you want to go for speed, try keeping the slot open. Trying to get things ready here for another demonstration, I'll take a minute to point out the battery charger, which is located on the port side of the boat underneath the companionway. To get to the charger outlet, there's a little receptacle inside the bulkhead behind a rubber flap, and if you reach behind the ice chest on the port side of the boat, you should find it. Located inside the boat also you'll find a battery cord that is 20 feet long and a 15 amp marine connector. And it just plugs in any standard outlet, and you're ready to charge. The charger is automatic, and all you do is plug it in, and when the batteries need charging, it'll charge it, and when they're fully charged, they will go to a maintenance charge. On the starboard side of the boat, you'll notice a battery switch and a battery panel. The battery panel is used to operate the running lights, the bilge pump, and if you want to hook up something like a lighter, cell phone, blender, etc. To get the 12-volt system to work, put the battery switch into the number 2 position. That's the only position that the battery is hooked up to. Once it's in that, the panel light should light up for operation. The control we have in the cockpit is located on the starboard side of the cockpit. It's called jib winger. you'll notice that there's two lines coming out of the deck, but only one cleat. This jib winger is kind of like a built-in whisker pole that moves the jib boom from one side to the other, or holds it out in light air. Let's pull one now, Brian. We put one cleat so you can only keep one cleat at one time. There's actually a set of control rods underneath the deck that are actually pulling the jib boom out, and will hold it out in position in light air so you can effectively wing and wing the sail. You want to make sure that you release the cleat when you're about to jibe, because otherwise you could bend the rod. Let the jib boom come back in, and you can actually jibe it from side to side. It's usually a good idea to release the jib winger and pull the jib boom around by the jib sheets and get it to go from side to side so you don't overstress the jib winger underneath the deck. So, you don't need to use a jib winger. It's just an extra bit of hardware that you don't need to worry about taking off for jibes. Now that we've got the mast up, the mainsail on, everything all rigged up, it's time to put the jib in the head sail track. Now the CDI head foil furling unit comes with a jib halyard that's half length and a pennant to raise the sail up. What you need to do is tie the blue and white jib halyard through the head grommet in the sail and put that into the feeder slot in the head foil, and then use the tag line to actually raise the sail to the top of the mast. Brian's demonstrating that now. So that's how it would look attached to the sail, and just pull the tag line, and that raises the sail up. Make sure you keep the sail going up the groove the whole time, otherwise you'll need to bring it lower it down enough to get it back fed properly. Once you get the sail to the top of the mast, you'll come to the junction between the jib halyard itself and the tag line. What you need to do is untie the tag line from the halyard and set up a trucker's hitch on the blue jib halyard and use that as a cinch knot to go through the shackle at the outside of the jib furling drum. You use that to set the halyard tension and the height of the hoist of the jib. The other side, with the small piece of tag line, is the jib tack line, and once you've set your height, use that to double over and cinch down and get proper luff tension. Usually I go wrap it through two or three times and then set up a couple of half hitches to cinch it down. You don't want to over tighten the sail because that'll distort the sail shape too much. And go sailing. Pull the jib out. It's very simple. All you need to do is uncleat the jib furling line. Make sure you're not stepping on it. That's the most common problem with the jib knot unfurling. And tug on the jib outhaul located on the other side of the boat. And to furl the sail up, just do the opposite. When you launch your boat, you'll notice that there's a third full-size tire located in the middle of the trailer. This is actually a ramp launching wheel that pivots down into position so that you can go down the ramp with 3 full-size tires. Right now it's in the up position, and it gives you a full-size spare tire complete with axle, hub, wheel, lug nuts, bearings, the whole 9 yards, so you have a complete spare setup in case you have a problem going down the road. That rolls nicely. Here's the pin that helps rotate it in position, and I'll just undo that and put it in the down position. The wheel looks like in the down position, and you can see that it's ready to go off the jack stand, hook it up to a tow strap, and go straight down the ramp. This should get you going over most bumps, dips, and debris on the ramp, and get you in and out of the water nice and clean and straight. And it's ready to be a spare tire again.